Good evening to everyone joining us here in person today, and also to the hundreds of people joining us online. I'm Hayley Wong. I am the Students' Union President, and I'd like to welcome you all to the inaugural President's Address. So I began my role as Imperial College Union President on the 1st of August, which coincidentally was the same day Professor Hugh Brady began his tenure as Imperial College President. Since then, we've worked together in several areas, including welcoming the thousands of new students to college, and just yesterday, we filmed a video together for World Mental Health Day. Student-staff collaboration is an integral part of the college's identity. The college's leadership and the Students' Union work closely together in ensuring that students are at the forefront of everything that the college does. It is only with that willingness to collaborate and the focus on student experience that we can enable all of our brilliant students here to achieve their full potential. Imperial is a world-class institution, and that cannot happen without clear strategic leadership. Hugh brings a fresh perspective to the college, and I look forward to collaborating with you in shaping the college's strategic direction. The student community and I are very excited to hear Hugh's vision for Imperial, and I'm sure the same could be said for the staff community and friends of the college. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming President Hugh Brady for his inaugural address.
Thank you, Hayley. We've had quite a 2 months together. New monarch, new government, new mini-budget. I can't wait for the next 10 months. Good evening and welcome everyone to my inaugural President's Address. And first, a really big thank you to our entire Imperial community for the quality of its COVID response over the last 2.5 years. It has been, as you know, extraordinarily challenging and exhausting, and of course, tragic for so many families. But your efforts to keep Imperial's education and research activities going was truly heroic. And Imperial's research shed light on the biology and pathogenicity of the virus, its variants and behavior, vaccine design, and treatment approaches. Our modelers influenced government responses across the world and likely saved hundreds of thousands or perhaps even millions of lives. Our Imperial community proved itself to be both creative and resilient academically and empathetic, collaborative, and mutually supportive. Now, we hope, of course, for a more normal 22-23, but nothing is guaranteed. A few words on my own journey. It's a great honor to serve as President of Imperial. It's all the more special because it was a medical student elective in 1981 at the Hammersmith Hospital, one of our wonderful clinical partners, that inspired me to pursue a career in academic medicine. I trained as a clinician scientist, nephrologist, so kidney disease, dialysis, and transplantation. I stress I'm neither insured nor licensed anymore. And before joining Imperial, my journey took me through University College Dublin, from where I graduated, the University of Toronto, where I had my clinical training, Harvard Medical School, where I spent most of my formative academic years, the University of Bristol. So 4 very different and successful universities, each with their own unique character and each located in a great city. But I can say with confidence that I saved the very best wine until last. So I'm very grateful for the warm welcome that I've received across the college during my meetings with staff and students, during campus tours, and most recently during departmental visits. I'm learning so much about Imperial, what makes it tick, what staff and students, and indeed alumni, love about the place, their ambition for the college, and equally, their anxieties, concerns, and day-to-day pressures. So what attracted me to Imperial? In short, it was a combination of its unique history, its magnificent track record, its distinctive profile and strengths, and above all, its enormous potential. Every time I walk along Exhibition Road, I marvel at the vision of Prince Albert and his fellow architects over a century and a half ago. And my goodness, didn't they create something really special? Per square metre, the Albertopolis must be one of the most impressive cultural and scientific quarters in the world. And it's such an important part of the Imperial experience. And it's great that we're collaborating with our fantastic neighbours more and more. I visited Imperial's Dyson School of Design Engineering over the past few weeks and heard about its Masters in Global Innovation Design, a really unique transnational program delivered collaboratively with the Royal School of Art that's already producing some really remarkable young entrepreneurs. And sitting in City and Guilds this evening is a reminder of how Imperial has evolved. Its antecedent institutions, the Royal School of Mines, City and Guilds of London Institute and the Royal College of Science coming together to form Imperial College London, which received its Royal Charter in 1907. 25 years ago, Imperial welcomed its new medical school, and many congratulations to our medical school on its Silver Jubilee, which we celebrated just last week. Celebrations, I think, that will go on for quite a while. In 2004, the late Queen Elizabeth II opened Imperial College Business School. Now, these bold and visionary moves over a century and a half, none, I suspect, without its challenges and detractors, paved the way for the creation of today's Imperial, a global powerhouse that is truly distinctive because of three powerful elements. First, its focus on business, engineering, medicine, and science. Second, its commitment and passion for innovation, entrepreneurship, impact, and social benefit. And third, its location in what I would argue is the world's greatest city. And it was this alluring cocktail that attracted me to Imperial and that attracts the brightest minds, students and staff from across the world. It's this cocktail that, for me, makes Imperial unique among the world's leading universities. Now, as you know, innovation and impact are in Imperial's DNA. I've been struck by how many staff and students tell me that they chose Imperial explicitly because they wanted to make the world a better place. Our students talk excitedly about innovation, about starting companies. This was readily apparent when I welcomed our first years in the Great Hall and chatted with students at the stalls during Welcome Week. And it positively lit up the room when I met our impressive student entrepreneurs at our recent London Demo Day. Imperial now produces approximately 50 student startups per year. Innovation and impact were, or have also been, central themes in my conversations with staff during departmental visits. And it's no exaggeration to say that our fantastic staff are generating and harnessing new knowledge and technologies to make our world healthier, smarter, safer, more prosperous, and more sustainable. And I'm always reluctant to give examples, but even over the past fortnight, it was inspiring to learn about truly groundbreaking initiatives, such as our Institute for Deep Tech Entrepreneurship, our Institute for Security Science and Technology, our new Bramall Vasudevan Institute for Sustainable Aviation, our Institute for Infection, and IX at White City. And all against a backdrop of Imperial being ranked first in the recent Research Excellence Framework. And furthermore, it's abundantly clear, certainly to me, that Imperial is not resting on its laurels. If anything, that REF success has raised the college's ambition. And my job over the coming years is to understand that ambition better, to work with you to further develop it, and to secure the resources to deliver it. I can't think of a better job in the world. Now, it's customary at these events for a new president to enthrall the audience with a vision for the future in an eloquent speech infused by literary quotes, humor, and uncanny foresight. Now, I'm afraid I'm a much more practical individual, and it would be totally inappropriate of me to be prescriptive after only 2.5 months in this great institution. But I will share my early thoughts, and in particular, propose why and how we should carve out some time together to refresh Imperial's vision and strategy over the year ahead. Imperial's performance has been remarkable. It is now, as you know, ranked among the world's best universities, virtually all of which enjoy significantly greater levels of resource. And I certainly detect a clear ambition to strengthen Imperial's position within that top tier and to maximize Imperial's potential as a force for good in our world. The purpose of our refresh strategy will be to capture our vision and Imperial, our vision and ambition for Imperial over that decade ahead, to establish a roadmap or a game plan to guide our decision-making and our investments, and as importantly, to persuade and inspire others to join us, to partner with us, and to invest in us. To be relevant, our refresh strategy must, of course, take cognizance of the context within which we operate. And indeed, it's precisely because of the recent tectonic shifts in our world that it's an opportune time to take a fresh look at Imperial strategy. I don't need to remind colleagues that we live in truly extraordinary times. A pandemic, Brexit, geopolitical instability and war, a cost of living and energy crisis, likely recession, and the concerning consequences of climate change. And we also operate within a higher education sector that is challenged on multiple fronts. Home tuition fees that don't cover the cost of education delivery, research funding that doesn't cover the full costs of research, ongoing doubt about our association with the world's largest research program, Horizon Europe, a national immigration narrative that the brightest and best across the world perceive as unwelcoming, culture wars that sometimes depict our world-class higher education sector as a problem rather than the huge international success story that it is. And now, of course, a question mark over the long-term sustainability of government finances. So a quite legitimate question is whether Imperial can continue to compete successfully in the top tier globally, given that confluence of threats. Now, I wouldn't be here if I wasn't confident that Imperial can, but only if we play smart and build on our strengths and differentiators, identify and grasp new opportunities early, diversify our income streams, and deploy those resources wisely, partner strategically, and strengthen our global brand. And our strategy will need to address all of these key issues. It'll be the playbook that enables us to compete at the very top level on a sustainable basis in the face of that very challenging external environment. It's definitely not going to be easy, but Imperial's fundamentals are very strong. It has a fantastic set of ingredients to play with, and it has you, our fantastic staff, students, alumni, and friends. Our new University Management Board kicked off the strategy discussions during a 2-day residential in early September, and we're forming a steering group to coordinate a college-wide conversation. And we'll be seeking the views of our entire community and, equally important, the views of our external stakeholders. So I hope you'll all get involved. We'll try to keep it as light touch as possible. I really appreciate how busy people are, but it will require some of your time if it's to be engaging and meaningful. So before turning to some of what I see as our big strategic opportunities, let me reassure you that our strategy refresh will not diminish our efforts to address key day-to-day issues that I know are important to students and staff. So this will not be a distraction. These will go hand in glove. Staff have been very clear that we have further work to do together on our value and cultures, our culture and values, on the quality of our research systems, our support systems and services, and of course on workload. And these will be a priority for my team. I want to reassure you of that. On the topic of culture and values, I want to first acknowledge the important ongoing work coordinated by the Imperial Together Action Group. Invaluable work. And secondly, that we're going to establish a people and culture subcommittee of the University Management Board, which I will chair, to ensure that this agenda has the prominence it deserves at the very top table in the institution. In my conversations with students, 3 topics come up repeatedly that they've asked me to work with them on as a matter of urgency: student mental health, assessment and feedback, and student hardship. Now, there's already important ongoing work on assessment and feedback that's building on Imperial's excellent recent NSS results, and we'll redouble our efforts in this area. I can also assure students that we will monitor closely the size and the eligibility criteria for our Student Hardship Fund over the coming year and make adjustments if necessary. But given, as Hayley mentioned, that it was World Mental Health Day yesterday, I thought it was appropriate to say a few words on that priority for our students. The rising tide of mental health issues affecting young people in the UK and across the globe is, as you know, very concerning. It's not, of course, restricted to students. It's equally problematic in non-students of the same age. Nor should universities be expected to replace the NHS, the primary provider of mental health services. But we are in a privileged position to identify students with mental health issues early, to support them, and to help them access the NHS. I'm delighted that Imperial has adopted the student opt-in policy that we pioneered in my previous role in Bristol, and many of the recommendations of the Suicide Safer Universities report, which I chaired for Universities UK. An absolute priority for me over the coming year will be to partner with our students and staff to develop a comprehensive whole institution mental health strategy to ensure that our efforts across Imperial are joined up and fit for purpose. And at Imperial, mental health has got to be everybody's business. Let me turn now in the final section of my address, return to the strategy. And again, I really appreciate how busy everybody is, the pressures that they're under, but really important that we carve out time to take a medium to long-term view. There have been many successful and indeed some iconic organizations that have run aground because they were overly focused on the day-to-day and failed to recognize emerging trends or threats. And the key questions that I suggest we need to sink our teeth into are: 1, what is our optimal institutional size, shape, and business model given our ambition? Secondly, how can we be more radical in our approach to EDI and widening participation? Third, how can we achieve a step change in the scale of our research in key strategic areas, and related to that, a step change in our innovation capacity and industry partnerships? Fourth, how can we harness the full potential of our wonderful White City campus? And how do these developments dovetail with plans for South Kensington, Silwood Park, and our clinical sites? 5, how can we deliver on our commitment to transition to net zero by 2040? And last but not least, how do we strengthen Imperial's international presence and brand. Now, given time constraints, I'll say a few words on some, but not all, of these topics. First, a word of reassurance. Imperial is already a high-performing institution, and much of what we do today will continue without radical change over the decade ahead. As a physician, I'm acutely aware of the adage primum non nocere, first do no harm. But the reality is that our world continues to change rapidly. With that change comes new opportunities, but also significant threats. Our competitors are not standing still. In many areas, they're moving faster and investing more. And at the very least, we need to match the opposition and ideally get well ahead of them. Now, I'm aware that discussions on institutional size and shape can cause anxiety in high-performing institutions, as it implies that there will be winners and losers. And that's not the intention, and nor am I contemplating closures or mergers. But if we're to compete on a sustainable basis in the very top tier internationally, we are competing in what is a deep pockets game. And we will need to grow our non-regulated fee income to generate the resources we need to reinvest in our research and innovation activities. This reality, in turn, raises a number of questions. In what academic areas should we grow? How do we incentivize, accommodate, and support that growth? How do we ensure that we're not over-dependent on a limited number of geographies, already a clear and present danger? Is our portfolio sufficiently flexible for a world where many students may not want the traditional residential experience, and fit for purpose when many employers are looking to upskill their workforces through different types of educational products and partnerships, many in areas of STEM where Imperial is absolutely best in class? How do we capitalize on that wonderful new digital education capability that you developed during COVID and emerging immersive technologies to further strengthen our menu of educational opportunities? And having generated that additional resource, where do we invest for most impact? What are the research areas that we want to scale up? So these are challenging, real-world questions. They're difficult questions that we need to grapple with sooner rather than later because of the inherent weaknesses and risks in the current UK higher education funding model. If I could turn then to equality, diversity, and inclusion. I'm delighted that this has figured centrally in all of my departmental visits to date. And it's really clear that huge progress is being made. I'm also very encouraged by our efforts to widen participation and to make an Imperial education accessible to a much wider swathe of the population. In this vein, I can't think of a more exciting and timely initiative than Imperial's new joint medical school with the University of Cumbria. This is real levelling up, and I hope it'll inspire other parts of our university to be even more radical in their approach to widening participation and diversity. Finally, I'm tremendously excited by the potential of our White City campus, that wonderful deep tech campus, and how it complements and indeed enhances the wider Imperial experience. And a really huge congratulations, because it is an amazing achievement. It is amazing what has been achieved so quickly under quite challenging conditions, and a big congratulations to all of those who've been involved to date. It is already, certainly coming from the outside, it's already a rich cauldron of world-class research, innovation, startups and scale-up, and industry partnerships. It's a fantastic magnet that is attracting SMEs and large corporates into the wider White City Innovation District. And it's providing valuable educational, training and prototyping opportunities for communities in one of London's most disadvantaged areas. It's a shining example of how a world-class research-intensive university can develop a new precinct that is transformational for its own educational research and innovation activities and a catalyst for levelling up, for urban regeneration and for economic growth. So we have some really exciting decisions to make. What does the next phase of development look like, both in terms of its academic focus and its innovation profile? Who and how should we partner? Of course, how can we fund it? And as importantly, how fast can we deliver it? Because I mentioned the opposition, the competition is not standing still. How can we best support and influence the shape of the wider White City Innovation District? And how can this world-class innovation asset contribute to the UK's wider innovation ecosystem? As a relatively recent arrival to the UK, I find it somewhat puzzling that the strength of London and indeed the so-called golden triangle of London, Oxford and Cambridge is sometimes portrayed as being a problem. Most countries would be celebrating and promoting such a brand across the globe to attract talent and attract foreign direct investment, and would be looking to leverage this unique concentration of research and innovation to build innovation capacity through partnership in other parts of the UK. The real competition is not national but international. It's not London versus Manchester, Birmingham or Glasgow, but London versus Kendall Square, or Silicon Valley or Shenzhen. So Imperial is a phenomenal innovation asset, and I look forward to using our strategy process to engage with the UK government and other potential stakeholders on how we can maximize our contribution to the UK's growth ambitions. So thank you for listening. It's a great privilege to serve as your president, and I look forward to exploring these topics with our community in more depth over the months ahead. Thank you.
Well done, Hugh. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How do you follow that? My task is simple. It's really to deliver a number of thank yous. First of all, I think to Hugh, not only for that inspiring address, but for accepting our invitation to become president of this institution. It is a fantastic institution, but I think we were very fortunate to persuade him that when he could perfectly well have gone somewhere else or stayed in Bristol, that this was the place to come to. And the more I see of him, the more I hear about him, the more I'm sure that we actually made the right decision. So that's a first thank you. Thank you to Hugh. Secondly, I'd like to thank those who served with me on the selection panel, or as I sometimes like to call it, the search party, that set out to find our new president. We had a very, very interesting group drawn from across the college who I think did a splendid job of sorting out, what was the best decision in a very strong field. If Hugh had not succumbed to our offer, we had some very, very good alternative candidates, but he was the one we wanted. Unfortunately, fortunately, he said yes. And I'd also like to thank my colleagues on council for supporting. Once we came forward with a recommendation from the search party that this was the man to go for, who supported us in going all out in order to attract you. But I think the most important thank you of all is really to the people who make up this fantastic institution. It's the end of the day, bricks and mortar are important, awards are important, and Imperial wins them by the ton and will continue to win them by the ton. But actually the most important thing about this institution is the people who make it up, the academic staff, the other staff, the students, because together we have got, I think, an awesome institution with fantastic potential. And this is not just promise for the future. This is being delivered day in, day out, week in, week out, year in, year out. You've done it for many years in the past, and I'm sure you'll continue to do it for many years in the future. This is one of the world's great universities, and I say that not just because we figure in the top 10 in all these charts and so on, but because, you know, I can see with my own eyes when I go around and I meet you just how sort of, you know, how inspiring, how dedicated, how committed are the people who are doing vital work within this institution. And for me, a particular attraction, this is very personal, is the fact that Imperial is making a contribution to addressing nearly all of the great challenges that mankind faces, whether that be public health or climate change or, you know, you name it. How do we make good use, how do we make positive use of data and not abuse it, and so on. So I think we have got a fantastic range of talent and capability here. And the challenge, I think, for Hugh and the management team and for everyone else is how we can continue, not how do we turn an institution that isn't doing well into something that does do well in the future, but how we can take a high-performance institution that's already demonstrating that it can perform and make it even better in the future. And frankly, I think that's an easier task than turning around something that isn't performing. And the fact that it is already performing is really a tribute to all of you. So I think, you know, I think we all know we take some satisfaction from when we win things like Guardian University of the Year and so on. But, you know, to be honest, you know, whether we're the Guardian University of the Year or not, I think everybody who works here ought to appreciate that this is really something very special, and something special based on reality. I like one of the things Hugh talked about was having ambition based upon reality, not just a fantasy about, you know, what might be possible in the future. Those who've been observing closely our government over the last 2 or 3 weeks will understand what fantasy is all about. But you know, how you take reality, how you take something that's already moving in the right direction and sustain it, speed it up, accelerate it, enable it to achieve things even faster going forward. It's a privilege, frankly, to be associated with this institution. I feel very lucky to have an opportunity to wander around and meet people and see some of the amazing work that is going on here. You know, it is a real privilege. And I think on behalf of Council, certainly, I get to speak for them. They're really the only group that I get to speak for. On behalf of Council, I'd like to thank you all for the fantastic institution that you have made this. And I'm very confident looking forward that if we have if we hear Hugh's addresses over the years ahead, we will go on to even greater success. So thank you very much. I'm the only person standing between you and a drink now, so I'm going to sit down and shut up. Thank you.